Hi, I'm Rowenna. On the day my sister got married, I was supposed to sit quietly, smile for photos, and pretend everything was perfect. But instead, I got a message, anonymous, chilling. Don't go to the wedding. Check your husband's office instead. And when I opened that door, it wasn't just my marriage that shattered. It was everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. They erased me from their day, but what they didn't know was that I had just begun rewriting mine. Before we begin, tell me, have you ever found out the truth too late? Or just in time? The light crept into my room like it didn't want to wake me. It filtered through the sheer curtains I'd left half-drawn the night before, casting soft lines across the wooden floor. I sat at my vanity, brushing out my hair like I'd done 100 mornings before, but this time it wasn't just any morning. It was Callista's wedding day. My dress hung by the window. Mauve, tasteful, conservative even. I chose it so I wouldn't look like I was trying too hard. No one ever expected much from the youngest daughter anyway, not in our family, especially not next to Callista. She was always the one everyone noticed, the star, the prize. I was the helper, the extra, the afterthought with good manners and quiet shoulders. But I played the role well, didn't I? I remembered steaming her college interview outfit, triple-checking her bridal shower guest list, folding napkins in the shape of tulips because Callista always liked a theme. Even now, I'd spent the last few weeks making sure her florist got her peonies in on time, while she told everyone I was just happy to be included. Maybe I was. Until lately. I glanced at the pearl hair clip nestled on the edge of the vanity. It used to belong to our grandmother. I hadn't worn it in years, but today, I needed it. Just to remind myself that someone once had loved me enough to give me something precious. I slid it into place, feeling a strange comfort settle into my chest. The clip clicked shut with a quiet finality. It was the only piece of this day that belonged to me. I reached for my clutch. My phone buzzed. A single vibration. I glanced at the screen. No name, just a local area code. I almost swiped it away. Then I saw the message. Don't go to the wedding. Check your husband's office instead. 10 words. That's all. I froze, clutch in one hand, phone in the other. The air in the room tightened. My eyes scanned the message over and over as if another version would appear if I looked long enough. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone had the wrong number. Maybe... But my hand was shaking. My mouth went dry. I sat back down at the vanity, knees touching, spine stiff. The quiet hum in my chest had turned into a roar. My heart started racing, and not the kind of flutter you get from anticipation. This was dread, cold and immediate. My reflection stared back at me. What kind of woman would I be if I ignored it? What kind of woman would I be if I went? 100 memories crowded my thoughts all at once. Darian working late, the clipped phone calls, the shift in how he touched my back when I passed by. I'd ignored the signs because I didn't want to be that wife. The paranoid one, the dramatic one. But now I had to choose. Risk ruining my sister's wedding day, again becoming the problem child. Or finally, for once, listen to the voice in me that had grown quieter with every, "It's nothing." I heard my therapist's voice from 2 weeks ago. "You've swallowed so much silence, Rowenna. You don't even recognize your own scream." I stood, walked slowly toward the door. My heels tapped against the floor like questions I didn't want to answer. No note, no explanation. I left the mauve dress on its hanger. I wasn't sure yet whether I'd still wear it. The sky outside had turned pale, cool blue. Seattle mornings always carried a slight dampness, like the city had just cried and wiped its face. I slid into my car, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway. As I turned onto the main road, the radio kicked in. A soft pop melody, saccharine, perfect for a wedding playlist. I turned it off. Downtown traffic was light, too light. I kept waiting for a red light to stop me, to force me to reconsider. But they all turned green, one after the other, like the city had decided I was supposed to get there. Each block closer to Darian's office made my chest feel tighter. I couldn't breathe fully. I didn't know what I hoped for. Maybe that the office would be dark, that I'd peek in, see nothing, go back home, and blame the message on a scammer. I pulled into the garage, parked, sat for a minute longer than I should have. Then I stepped out. My heels clicked against the concrete floor, sharp, echoing in the emptiness. It felt like walking into a courtroom before the trial had even begun. The front doors were unlocked, odd on a weekend. His office was on the 3rd floor, corner unit, with the stupid little bonsai tree I gave him once for his desk. He called it our tree. He never watered it. The elevator felt like it was moving slower than usual. By the time I reached his floor, my body was trembling. But not from fear, at least not entirely. There was something else underneath it, a sense of coming into something I'd spent years avoiding. The hallway was dim, most blinds pulled shut. I walked toward the end, toward Darian's door. My steps sounded louder than they should have, as if the building wanted to make sure I heard myself coming. I stopped outside the office, breathed, waited. This could be nothing. Just nerves. Then, just as I placed my hand on the knob, a laugh. High, soft, female, familiar, and close. My breath caught again, but this time not from the message. I knew that voice. Soft, almost sing-song, like the way someone sounds when they know they're being watched and want to be wanted. It was followed by a low, unmistakable chuckle. Darian's. My husband. I'd know the rhythm of that voice anywhere. There was something in it that didn't belong to the man who used to read budget spreadsheets over dinner. It was playful, flirtatious, a version of him I hadn't heard in years. I didn't barge in. I didn't knock. I turned the handle slowly, letting the latch give way without sound. I barely pushed, just enough to open the door 3, maybe 4 inches. That was all it took. There he was, Darian. Shirt open halfway down his chest, his posture hunched slightly, not with tension but intimacy. His arm was propped on the desk, hand resting possessively on the thigh of a woman who leaned into him with an easy, practiced closeness. Her dark hair spilled over his shoulder like it belonged there. Elowen, his assistant. Her head tilted back as she laughed again, louder this time. Her manicured fingers trailed a line along the collar of his shirt like she'd done it before. They didn't see me. Not even when I stepped into the room. Not even when I stood there silent 3 full seconds. His hand slipped up her leg. Her lips parted. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't say his name. I just watched. It felt like my body had gone into lockdown, like everything inside me had been unplugged, except my eyes. My chest tightened, then numbed. My knees didn't shake. I couldn't even find the muscle memory to move them. The world inside that office didn't belong to me. It had never belonged to me. I was just a figure in the doorway, a shadow in their story. 10 seconds passed, maybe 15. I counted them. It gave my mind something to do. Then I stepped back. I closed the door just as quietly as I had opened it. The hallway was still empty. The carpet muffled my footsteps. The click of the elevator button sounded louder than it should have. I didn't glance back. I didn't even wonder if they'd noticed. Outside, the city carried on like it didn't know my world had collapsed. The sidewalks pulsed with people in brunch clothes. A couple walked past holding iced lattes and laughing about a dog name they couldn't agree on. A teenager zipped by on a lime green scooter, earbuds in, mouthing lyrics to a song only he could hear. I stood at the corner for a while, pretending to wait for the light to change even though it already had. Then I walked. I didn't know where to go. A park bench near 3rd and Spring offered enough shade and just enough quiet. I sat down, legs crossed at the ankle like I was waiting for a friend, like nothing in my life had just been shattered under my heels. I folded my hands in my lap, looked at my nails. Not a chip. My lipstick hadn't even smudged. The pearl clip still held my hair in place. Perfect. Regal. As if nothing happened. But I didn't feel like a person anymore. I felt like someone who'd been erased. And somehow, everyone else had gotten the memo before I did. A church bell rang from a few blocks over. A wedding, of course, some other bride, some other celebration, some other woman walking down an aisle toward someone who wasn't halfway undressed in his office on a Saturday morning. My mind drifted back to when I was 10. My birthday had fallen on the same day Callista came down with strep throat. I was told we'd celebrate another day, that it wasn't the right time, that I should be understanding. I'd sat at the dining table in my little blue party dress, a melted cupcake in front of me, waiting for someone to remember. No one did. Not even my father, who was usually better about those things. That was the day I learned to swallow things quietly. Here I was, 35, and nothing had changed. My emotions were still negotiable, my value conditional. I was still the placeholder for someone else's convenience. My phone buzzed, Mom, then again, Callista. I watched the screen light up, then fade. Light up again, fade. They didn't know what I knew. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to answer. There wasn't a version of the conversation where I didn't feel like the villain. If I told them what I saw, would they even believe me? Or would they say what they've always said? You're reading too much into things, Rowenna? I'd spent my whole life making sure other people's moments weren't ruined. I wasn't about to break the tradition today. Not yet. Another buzz. This time it was my calendar alert. Callista's wedding, 11:30 a.m., Grace Chapel. With a tiny heart emoji she must have added herself. I opened the event, then hit delete. And finally, the first tear fell. I pressed the side button of my phone and let the screen go black. Then I lowered it slowly into my lap. Around me, the city moved on, like it always does. Cars passed by, a delivery driver muttered into his headset, 2 teenagers raced their scooters across the sidewalk, and I sat still on the bench, dabbing my cheek with the edge of my sleeve, trying not to smear the foundation I'd applied just hours ago. My dress still fell neatly around my knees. The heels still matched the clutch I'd chosen to look appropriate. But there was no one around to see it. No one noticed the woman in the quiet corner of downtown Seattle, sitting too still for the noise of the world. I stood up slowly and walked. I didn't look at the signs, didn't register where I was going. My feet just moved. My heels clicked against pavement, the rhythm offbeat with each uneven sidewalk crack. I passed a diner window where a family of 4 leaned over pancakes and laughed in that unbothered, syrup-sticky way only people untouched by betrayal can. A flower vendor called out something about lilies and early peonies. I didn't pause. My chest was tight, not from panic, but from numbness. Meanwhile, blocks away in the sun-warmed sanctuary of Grace Chapel, people were taking their seats. Cell phones buzzed with Instagram stories of the decor. Someone commented, "They must have spent a fortune on that arch." Callista stood near the entrance, fussing with her bouquet. She looked at the door once, then again. "She's probably stuck in traffic," she muttered. "Our mother didn't even look up from her purse. If she shows up late, she'll make it about her like always." I could almost laugh. Back at the church, the printed programs were already folded on each pew, my name nowhere in them. The family seating row had no extra chair. The slideshow Callista had prepared in secret flickered on a projector as guests arrived, showing childhood photos of her with cousins, neighbors, friends. Not a single frame with me. I kept walking. Each step, a quiet resignation. My body felt like it was moving through gelatin. My skin felt too tight for the bones it held. This wasn't new. At 22, Callista's graduation weekend, I was the one who edited her college admissions essay. I spent nights rewriting paragraphs while she slept in. But when the actual ceremony came, Mom said, "The after-party's just for her friends, Rowenna. You understand, right?" Of course I did. I always did. I even helped pick out her shoes. I smiled back then because I thought smiling would keep me in the frame, but I've finally stopped believing that. It wasn't just about the infidelity, not just about the wedding. It was years of being the person people called when they needed rides, when they forgot their wallet, when they couldn't remember the password to their banking app. Years of being useful, but never valuable. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to stop apologizing for existing. I passed a corner where street musicians were setting up. A girl about 10 twirled near the open violin case. I watched her for a moment. Her joy was loud, her existence unafraid. Then I kept moving. My feet ached, blistered. One heel cracked against a curb and I wobbled. I didn't even flinch. I just walked unevenly until I found the nearest building with a sign for restrooms. Inside, the lights buzzed softly. I picked a stall near the end, locked it, and sat down on the closed lid. My hands went to my hair. The pearl clip was still there, still in place. I pulled it out gently and stared at it in my palm. It looked foreign now, like it belonged to someone else, a woman who'd planned to smile through someone else's big day, again, even while carrying her own quiet ache. I set it on my knee, just looked at it. Callista was married now. Somewhere, she was probably posing for a photo with Darian's arm around her waist, or maybe cutting into a 3-tier cake, or whispering, "Thank you for coming," to distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. No one called me, no one texted. Not to ask if I was all right, not even to say, "Where are you?" I reached for my phone again, powered it off, let silence win for a while. I left the restroom eventually and walked the final few blocks toward the harbor. The air was different there, cleaner, breezier. I looked over the water for a long while, until the ache in my feet forced me to stop pretending I was fine. I turned into a quiet inn tucked behind a seafood restaurant. The woman at the desk didn't ask questions when I handed over my credit card and asked for a room under Corinne. Corinne had been the name of my 3rd-grade teacher, strict but kind. She'd once told me, "You don't have to be loud to be strong." The name felt like armor now, a clean keycard, a quiet bed, a name no one else would think to call me. I woke before the alarm, though I hadn't set one. The room was dim, filled with that kind of blue-gray light that makes everything look like it's underwater. The walls were beige, the curtains heavy. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, trying to remember where I was. And then it came back. The bench, the photos, the laughter behind that door, Callista's wedding, Darian's voice, Elowen's hand on his chest. It all settled into my chest like wet sand. I sat up slowly, the hotel sheets rumpled around me. I hadn't even unpacked. My dress was draped over the armchair, and my clutch sat unopened on the small desk. The TV remote was untouched. I stood, stretched my arms just enough to ease the ache between my shoulders, then moved to the small coffee machine by the wall. I poured water into the reservoir, placed the paper cup underneath, and pressed the button. That's when the knock came, just once. I paused, hand mid-air over a sugar packet. I crossed the room in bare feet and opened the door. The hallway was empty, no footsteps, no noise, but at my feet, an envelope, manila, unmarked, no name, no address. I picked it up, turned it over. Nothing. Something in me, the part that used to hope, told me to leave it sealed. But my fingers didn't listen. I slid my thumb beneath the flap and pulled out a stack of photos. Real, printed photos. Glossy, clean edges, each one more final than the last. Darian and Elowen, laughing outside a boutique hotel I didn't recognize, clinking wine glasses at a candlelit table, walking barefoot on a beach I knew he never visited with me, and then a close-up. Them kissing. At the bottom corner of the final picture, scrawled in black ink, "She's pregnant. You deserve to know." I didn't drop the photo. I didn't scream. I just sat down on the edge of the bed and laid them out, one beside the other. 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted them like inventory. My hands were steady, but my breath came in uneven pulls. I stared at their faces, his easy grin, her lipstick too bright, and felt my ribs tighten like someone was pulling them inward with invisible thread. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, my brain did what it always did when something threatened to break me. It sorted, it compared, it calculated. That night he said he was stuck reviewing contracts, same week as the photo with the wine glasses. The weekend he told me he had a mediation session in Tacoma. That beach photo. I cross-checked the dates in my head, one after another. 2 years, 2 years of split time, carefully arranged lies, all while I hosted dinner parties for his clients and covered for Callista's endless reschedules. He was planning a baby with someone else while I was ironing my sister's rehearsal dinner napkins. I went to the bathroom, stepped into the shower, turned it on. I didn't undress. The water warmed slowly. It hit my scalp, rolled down my back, soaked my nightshirt, but I couldn't feel the difference between that and the grief pressing into my skin. All those years trying to be agreeable, supportive, undemanding. All those moments I bit my tongue, walked away, said, "It's fine." And for what? I wasn't the one he chose. I wasn't the one he stayed for. I stood there until the mirror fogged completely. Then I stepped out, stripped off the soaked fabric, and wrapped myself in a towel. When I sat at the small desk, the photos were still on the bed, curling slightly at the edges. This wasn't going to be a conversation. This was going to be a strategy. If I yelled, they'd spin it. If I cried, they'd comfort themselves. If I showed hurt, they'd call me bitter. No. If they thought I was broken, they'd stop watching. And that's when people slip up. That's when they show you who they really are. I powered on my laptop and opened a private browser. Seattle Private Investigator, Family Law, Discreet. A dozen listings. I clicked the ones with no cheesy slogans, found a woman named Renita who specialized in domestic duplicity and financial extraction. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but it sounded like the right kind of ruthless. I scheduled a meeting for 4:30 that afternoon. No message to Darian, no reply to Callista. I didn't even open their text. Instead, I padded back toward the kitchenette, grabbed a granola bar from the lobby basket I brought up last night, and sat down. I chewed slowly, forcing my stomach to remember how to want something. Halfway through, I realized this was the first thing I'd eaten in over 24 hours. That fact didn't make me proud. It just made me aware. My body hadn't given up yet, so neither would I. After brushing my hair and changing into something clean, I moved toward the dresser, pulled open the top drawer, and found the pearl hair clip still resting there. I picked it up, let the light catch on the curved edge, then placed it gently back inside. "Not yet," I whispered. "Not yet." I closed the drawer softly, the pearl clip inside like a sealed breath. By the time I left the hotel room, the sun had sunk lower in the sky, casting soft shadows over the streets of Capitol Hill. I wore simple slacks, a linen blouse, and sunglasses. Not to hide. I just didn't want to be seen the way people usually saw me, when I was useful, when I was agreeable. Today, I was neither. The walk to the investigator's office took just under 10 minutes, but every step felt weighted. Not dramatic, just deliberate. I passed a bakery where a woman held her toddler up to the window. The child squealed at cupcakes topped with candy whales. I kept walking. The office was tucked above a consignment bookshop. No flashy sign, just a brass plaque that read, "Leon Travers, Investigations," the kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. The receptionist, young, soft-spoken, offered me water. I declined. Leon came out himself, gray suit, buttoned. Early 50s, maybe. His handshake was firm but didn't linger. He didn't offer small talk, just opened the door to his office and motioned for me to sit. The space was minimal. Clean desk, 2 chairs, no family photos. Just a single framed quote behind him. "In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take." He waited until I sat. "I reviewed what you sent," he said, gesturing to the envelope of photos I'd passed earlier. "And I pulled a few records you might want to see." He opened a file folder, not looking at me yet. Just paper. Ink. Evidence. "I need to ask you something, Ms. Ferris," he said, his tone flat. "Are you ready to know things you may never be able to unknow?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." He slid the first document toward me. "This is a soft pull on Darian's activity. Nothing that triggers alerts. Look here," he pointed. "Withdrawals from your joint account. Large amounts, over months, then transfers, same-day routing, to an LLC registered in Oregon." I leaned closer. "What LLC?" "Redwater Holdings, created 3 years ago. The mailing address traces back to a UPS box near Ballard." I furrowed my brow. I've never heard of that. His eyes didn't waver. One of the accounts is in your name. I blinked. No, I didn't open any business account. You did, on paper, 5 years ago. My mouth went dry. 5 years ago. That was the year my father died. That week at the hospital. The folder Darian handed me while I sat beside Dad's bed, trying to focus through the beeping monitors and the sterile light. I'd signed every page. I remembered his words exactly. It's just to help with tax stuff. I'll walk you through it later. Later never came. And I never asked. Leon waited, letting it settle. I looked up. Can you confirm that it's fraud? Depends. If you can prove you were misled, coerced, or unaware of the financial intent, yes, but it's layered. He covered tracks well, but not perfectly. He turned the page and pushed another folder across the desk. There's more. I hesitated. He gave a small nod. I opened it. This time it was a real estate record. My parents' Mercer Island property, the one Dad used to call ours. The summer house with the peeling dock and the magnolia tree that shed petals into the lake. The title had been updated. My name, once on it as a co-beneficiary, was no longer there. Removed, dated 6 months ago, signed by my mother. The space behind my ribs caved in slightly. It was always supposed to be split, I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. My dad, he promised that. He didn't respond, just watched. The silence said enough. She never told me, I said. No one did. He gestured to the timestamp. 6 months ago. Was there anything significant then? I did the math. That was right after Callista announced the wedding date. Something inside me twisted, like the truth had been right there all along and I just hadn't looked. A memory flickered. Dad's funeral. The church pews. My mother in black, holding back tears. Callista on the phone coordinating florals. Me in the hallway, signing whatever Darian handed me because I trusted him more than I trusted the chaos. I rubbed my temple, the pressure building. They didn't think I'd ever check, I said quietly. Leon nodded once. That's often how this goes. People rely on your silence. I stared at the documents, the clean lines, the deliberate edits, the quiet, clinical way I'd been erased, first from a marriage, now from a family history. The pain didn't come like a scream. It came like a tightening drawstring. I don't want revenge, I said after a moment. I just want the truth. I want to know how deep this goes. He folded his hands. That's the right place to start. I met his eyes, steady, cold. Can you find out? He nodded. I already have a plan in motion. I left Leon's office with the folders tucked deep in my bag, my hand wrapped tight around the leather strap like I was carrying something radioactive. Outside, the city pulsed like nothing had happened. Just another late evening in Seattle. Buses huffing at red lights, couples holding hands past coffee shops. And me, walking like a woman rehearsing the steps to someone else's life. By the time I reached the apartment, the sun had bled out completely. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step counted in my head. Inside, the place smelled like Darian, not him, his routine. His cologne clung to the furniture. The air conditioner hummed low. He was sprawled across the couch watching basketball, a bottle of beer resting on his stomach like it belonged there more than I did. Hey, babe, he said without looking away from the screen. You didn't go to the wedding either? I set my bag down slowly. Migraine. He grunted, adjusting his position. Probably for the best. That kind of family drama? That stuff'll rot your brain. I just stood there, watching him. The curve of his body in the lamplight, his total ease. I had seen the photos not 12 hours ago. I had read the signatures. And still, this. Busy at work? I asked, my voice low. He nodded. You know how it is. Paperwork backed up. Courthouse meetings. Traffic sucked. Right, I said. Courthouse. He reached over to the wine rack and pulled out a bottle. Want a glass? Sure. He poured it carefully, handed it to me like a peace offering, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let him. but I turned just enough that his lips brushed air more than skin. He didn't seem to notice. Later I told him I was too tired for bed and curled up on the couch with a throw blanket. He shrugged and wandered into the bedroom, already yawning. I didn't sleep. When I heard his snoring, the steady, open throat kind that meant he was deep, I tiptoed to the bedroom door, made sure it was shut, then crept back into the hallway. I opened my closet, pulled up the floorboard I'd loosened months ago during a cleaning spree, folded copies of the documents, Darian's fake LLCs, the property deed, my erased name, went inside. Then I closed it carefully and set a pair of boots over it. Only then did I open my phone, not to call anyone, just to look. The wedding hashtag had gone live. Callista had posted a carousel, her smiling in a lace gown, our mother dabbing her eyes dramatically, their friends toasting champagne flutes. The caption read, "The most magical day of my life. I couldn't have done it without my incredible family, grateful beyond words." Tag, Mom. Tag, Cousin Faith. Tag, Dad's old co-worker. Not me. I wasn't even in the background of a single shot. I wasn't just gone. I was unacknowledged. I sat down slowly, back against the wall. When I was 29, Callista moved to New York. She didn't have the credit to secure the apartment, so I co-signed. Quietly, paid the deposit. Never asked for it back. At her going-away dinner, she raised a glass and said, "To everyone who helped me get here, you know who you are." She had looked right past me. That night, I'd swallowed something bitter with my lemon spritzer and told myself it didn't matter. It did. Now, everything did. I opened my laptop and began scanning in every document I had. I searched local listings for forensic accountants. I created a spreadsheet. I wasn't just collecting anymore. I was archiving. I was constructing a timeline not just of betrayal, but of truth. Mine. Then I opened Instagram one last time. I stared at my profile photo, smiling beside Callista at her college graduation. Delete account, confirm. As the app disappeared, I whispered, "You won't get to frame the story this time." The air was sharp that morning, cooler than the forecast had predicted. From the window, the streets of Seattle looked washed out, colorless under a low sky. I sat at the kitchen table, elbows resting beside a chipped mug of black coffee, the folders from Leon tucked neatly beside my laptop. Darian had left before dawn, claiming a breakfast meeting with a longtime client in Redmond. His voice had been too casual, the kiss on my temple too rehearsed. I didn't say anything, just nodded, and then I waited for the silence. Once the apartment stilled, I opened the laptop and went straight to the bank's secure portal. The joint accounts weren't just joint, they were weaponized. He'd used them to launder trust, and then to disappear it. Click. Transfer. The money slid into a newly opened trust account, registered under my maiden name. A firm in Spokane had helped me structure it last night. No flags, no alerts. Next, I revoked his name as power of attorney on all shared assets. Then came the email to our CPA with a CC to a personal backup I'd set up at 3 a.m. The message was clear, clinical, and neutral in tone. Please review all transactions initiated in the past 18 months. I am particularly concerned about movements made without spousal review or consent. This is time-sensitive. Document everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't text warnings. There would be no screaming match, not from me. Every keystroke I made this morning was legal, traceable, strategic, and completely invisible to a man who still thought I was playing house. I reached into the drawer beside me and placed the pearl hair clip on the table. I didn't pin it into my hair. I didn't even touch it. I just let it sit there beside the trackpad like a witness. I whispered to myself, "You once existed quietly. Now you exist on your own terms." Then I opened the Scan app and uploaded every page of documentation from Leon. One by one, the photos, the LLC filings, the property deeds, the signature overlays. Then I logged onto the IRS whistleblower portal. No drama, no narration, just data. Subject line: multiple undeclared accounts under spousal identity, timeline and evidence attached. Click. Then I opened a burner email and typed in an address I knew by heart. Francis Meyerzo, my cousin in Chicago. Tax attorney, Harvard-trained, never married, hasn't missed a holiday card in 15 years even when I forgot hers. Subject, from someone who trusted the wrong man, no message body, just attachments. I closed the laptop and exhaled. It wasn't relief, it wasn't pride, it was shift, something in my bones, something that felt like standing back up after years of being spoken over. I stepped outside, walked down the block, just to feel the ground. My shoes crunched over wet leaves. I stopped beside a lamppost and pressed my hand to its cool metal. I needed the chill to remind myself I was alive. I was here. The shaking in my hands wasn't panic anymore. It was voltage. By evening I'd cooked dinner, lasagna, the kind Darian always liked when he needed comfort but didn't want to say it. He came home late, like always, coat slung over one shoulder. He looked surprised by the smell in the kitchen. "Well," he said, kicking off his shoes, "either I'm in trouble or you missed me." I smiled as I served the plates. Neither. Just catching up on things. At the table, I poured him a glass of red and asked, "Did you move something in the joint account? Some of the numbers looked strange this morning." He paused, blinked too long, then recovered. "Oh yeah, probably just some stuff I shifted around. You know how that gets. I'll double-check." I nodded, letting the silence press into him. "Sure, we'll see." He went quiet, ate slower. I watched him, not with fury, with observation, as if I were watching the end of a performance I'd sat through too many times. Later that night, he fell asleep with the TV on. I stood at the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, watching his outline under the blanket. I leaned against the frame and whispered, "You still think I'm asleep?" Darian was still asleep when the mail arrived. I heard the sound of the mail slot creak and shut, followed by the soft slap of something hitting the floor. I didn't move right away. I just stared at the ceiling, arms folded across my chest, letting the quiet soak in. Then I got up, walked to the front door, and picked up the heavy white envelope, certified, stamped with a government seal. I left it by the coffee pot. He found it an hour later, rubbing sleep from his eyes, shirt wrinkled, hair in disarray. I pretended not to notice the way he scanned the envelope, then flipped it over 3 times before slicing it open with a butter knife. He read it once, then again, a 3rd time, slower. His lips pressed into a thin line, and his hands trembled slightly as he set it down. "You okay?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Yeah," he muttered, scratching his temple. "IRS stuff. Probably just a mistake." "Probably," I echoed, then sipped my coffee and said nothing more. By midday, I noticed him on the phone in our bedroom with the door cracked just enough to catch bits of his voice. "No, don't reply to anything yet. Just sit tight. We may need to reshuffle some things." Then a text. The name popped up on the corner of his screen before he angled it away. "Alawan, need to lay low, this could be messy." What he didn't know was that someone else had received a package too, the managing partner at his firm, a woman named Carla Riggs. Frances had made sure the documentation I gave her was duplicated and forwarded properly, with no sender. That afternoon, Darian was called into the firm's HR office. They didn't accuse him directly, but words like internal compliance, asset declaration, and independent review were used. He came home looking like he'd run 10 miles through fog. That night, he didn't mention it. Just set his phone on silent, poured a drink and sat on the couch watching a comedy he never laughed at. And I didn't ask. I let the silence do the cutting. Meanwhile, miles across the city, Callista's world cracked like old glass. At a dinner with her new in-laws, a stylish family that smiled with tight mouths and asked questions like they were subpoenas, Rowenna's name surfaced. "So," her new brother-in-law asked between bites of halibut, "I remember you said your sister handled the wedding budget?" Callista froze, fork mid-air. "Oh, she helped early on, but then things shifted. I mean, she wasn't really involved by the end." "Interesting," he said, checking something on his phone, "because I thought the down payment came from her escrow." Her husband shifted. Her mother-in-law raised one perfectly arched eyebrow. "I thought that money came from your side of the family," she said calmly. The rest of the meal was tight smiles and unanswered questions. That same night, I sat in the back of a small seminar hosted by Francis at a boutique law firm near Pike Place. The room was full of suits and soft voices. I wore slate gray, my hair was pulled back neatly, and the pearl clip, once just a keepsake, was pinned precisely behind my left ear. It wasn't just adornment anymore. It was declaration. You once belonged in rooms where you had to shrink. Not anymore. After the session, Frances found me near the refreshment table, pouring a small cup of decaf. "You were smart to send that anonymously," she said. I tilted my head but didn't deny it. She smiled. "But I knew it was you. The formatting was too perfect. You always use that narrow margin setting." I let a laugh slip. "They've opened a preliminary review," she added. "You'll probably be subpoenaed, not as a suspect, as the only person who wasn't losing their mind." Back home, I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate, but I saw it. Darian's LinkedIn changed subtly. His title vanished, replaced by "on extended leave." Callista's Instagram went quiet. Her latest brand deal with a local design house postponed due to internal reassessment, their rep said in a vague press release. And me? I placed the pearl clip, still warm from my hair, into a small velvet box I'd labeled in neat black marker, Evidence A. The following week began with silence and consequence. When I returned from Francis's office that Monday afternoon, Darian's car was gone from the driveway. The house was unusually still, as if it were holding its breath. I opened the door, half expecting a note or a broken glass. But he was there, sitting on the edge of the couch, duffel bag at his feet, one hand gripping the handle like a lifeline. "I didn't know how to start," he said, his voice softer than I'd heard it in years. "They're investigating everything. The firm suspended me. I'm on leave until further notice." He looked up, eyes rimmed with a kind of fear that wasn't about guilt, just exposure. "I made mistakes," he started again. "The pressure got to me. I know I messed up." I set my keys down on the counter and didn't respond. "Can we just reset?" he asked, as though this were some sort of argument over dinner plans. I sat across from him, folded my hands neatly in my lap, and met his gaze. "You've been erasing me for years," I said evenly. "This isn't revenge, Darian. This is me catching up." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he had a script rehearsed, but no one was giving him the cue to begin. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and returned with an envelope. It was thick, labeled in plain handwriting. He looked down at it. "What's this?" "Not a threat," I said. "Just the truth." Inside, a numbered list, every financial movement I'd traced, every lie documented, screenshots, transaction logs, dates I remembered being told he was at a conference or stuck in court. At the bottom of the final page, one line in my handwriting. "Everything you thought I wouldn't find, I did. Goodbye." He didn't follow me when I left the room, didn't call out, just sat there with the envelope. That same evening, the doorbell rang. I hesitated, but opened it. Callista stood on the porch. Eyes puffy, makeup uneven, hair pulled into a messy knot. She looked undone. "I shouldn't have come unannounced," she whispered. "No," I replied. "But you're here." "I saw the audit headlines," she said. "And Mom finally told me what happened with the house." I didn't say anything. I wanted her to earn the silence for once. "I didn't know it was that bad," she added. "Why didn't you say anything?" I leaned against the doorframe, my hand still resting on the knob. "I stopped talking," I said, "when you stopped listening." She nodded. "Just once." We stood there, both of us not crying exactly, but no longer able to pretend we weren't broken somewhere deep. When she left, I didn't watch her walk away. I went upstairs and began packing. Not everything, just what mattered. My grandmother's photo, my certificates, the books I had dog-eared during sleepless nights, the manila folders with legal records, And the pearl clip. I didn't touch the rest. I left the kitchen the way it always looked. The couch pillows he preferred, the silver cufflinks he never wore but insisted on keeping. The house could keep them. They belonged to the version of me that stayed too long. 2 days later, I moved into a quiet apartment near the bay in Tacoma. It had creaky wood floors and a view of the water that glowed copper at sunset. I started working part-time with Francis, helping audit questionable portfolios for small firms. The mornings felt different, lighter. My steps weren't rushed. My breathing wasn't shallow. I no longer double-checked if my presence was too loud, too much, too inconvenient. One afternoon, I stood in the tiny bathroom, the mirror slightly fogged from the shower. I looked at myself, not to judge, not to fix, but to see. "There are wounds that take years to name," I murmured. "But once you do, they can't own you anymore." I reached into the drawer and took out the pearl clip, pinned it to my hair. Not because I missed the girl who once wore it, but because I finally knew who she'd become. Before dinner that night, I sat down at my desk and opened a blank sheet of paper. Wrote one final note, not addressed to anyone, not meant to be sent, just meant to release. "I forgive you, not for you, for me. Because now I don't need your version of the story. I have my own."